Someone tried to teach you a lesson, didn't they? Walked into the room with that little smirk, that fake calm voice, that I know better than you attitude. They thought you'd shrink. They thought you'd apologize. They thought you'd remember your place. Funny thing about your place, it only exists if you agree to sit there. People don't teach lessons because they care about truth. They do it because they're afraid of losing control. A boss corrects your attitude. A teacher puts you in your place. A parent shows you consequences. A stranger puts you back in line. Different faces, same job, remind you that you're not supposed to run the room. You know what threatens them most. Not shouting, not fighting, not arguing. What terrifies them is when you don't flinch. When you look them in the eyes, hear their little speech, and you don't crumble, you don't rush to fix their feelings. You just sit there, calm, like the room is already yours and you're politely letting them finish. People who try to teach you a lesson think they're the main character. They think the universe handed them a chalkboard, a pointer, and moral authority. They walk in expecting applause. They walk out confused when the audience doesn't clap. Because the moment you stop needing their approval, their role collapses. No teacher, no classroom, just an insecure actor with a script and no power. Here's the part they never admit. Most lessons are just disguised revenge. You disrespected me. You embarrassed me. You didn't obey me. They don't want growth. They want repayment. They want you to taste a small version of the humiliation they felt. They call it feedback, boundaries, discipline. But underneath all the pretty words, it's just ego dressed in a suit. You've seen it. Someone raises their voice in public but pretends it's about principle. It's the principle of the thing. No, it's the feeling of the thing. They felt small for 3 seconds, and now they need you to feel smaller for 10. They call that balance. I call that emotional gambling with other people's dignity as the chips. Let's be honest, you were never the problem. The moment someone plans a lesson, instead of a conversation, they've exposed themselves. They don't see you as a person, they see you as a project, a defective object they can fix, polish, adjust. And every correction they make is just them rearranging you to fit into the tiny box of their comfort. Society absolutely loves these people. We put them in offices, give them titles, and clap when they set someone straight. The office manager who humiliates an intern in front of everyone. The teacher who mocks a student for asking a stupid question. The parent who uses shame instead of explanation. We don't call it abuse, we call it tough love. That phrase has saved more monsters than lawyers. Here's the sick joke. They think you're the unpredictable one. They whisper, you've changed. No, you've just stopped playing the easy character. The obedient one, the apologetic one. The one who folds at the first sign of disapproval. The moment you stop doing that, they don't know their lines anymore. Their script doesn't work on someone who doesn't beg. You remember the moment, don't you? Someone stepped up, ready to correct you. Maybe they raised their voice. Maybe they went cold and polite. Maybe they used sarcasm, pretending it was a joke. They expected you to fall into your usual role. Sorry, nervous, explaining yourself 5 times. Instead, you didn't shrink. You watched, you listened, you stayed frighteningly still. Silence scares people more than anger does. Anger means they still control the topic. Silence means they don't know what you're thinking. They can't map your next move. They don't know if you'll walk away, laugh, expose them, or simply ignore them. And people who need control hate being unable to predict you. That's when they start fumbling. Who do you think you are? That question is never curiosity, it's panic. It's the sound of someone realizing that their social status doesn't automatically bend you anymore. They thought their age, their experience, their title, their volume, their money, or their family role would be enough. Then they meet you, and none of it works. The room always has an invisible throne. That's the fun part. It's never written down. No sign, no assigned seat. But everyone feels it. The person whose reactions everyone watches. The person whose mood quietly sets the tone. Most people think that throne belongs to whoever talks the loudest. Wrong. It belongs to whoever doesn't need the room to like them. Someone tried to teach you a lesson because they thought they sat on that throne. They thought your world revolved around their opinion. They thought your self-worth was hanging from their approval like a broken light bulb. But then you looked at them with that calm, slightly amused expression, and suddenly they weren't so sure if the room was theirs at all. People confuse dominance with decibel. They think screaming equals power. It doesn't. Real power is when you can say no without raising your voice. When you can say I heard you without agreeing. When you can say nothing at all and still make someone question every word they just threw at you. Quiet defiance rewires the whole room. Let's talk about authority. That magic word grown adults hide behind when they don't have real respect. True authority doesn't need to humiliate anyone to be followed. True authority doesn't need to put you in your place. If someone constantly reminds you they're in charge, they're not in charge. They're begging you to believe a story they don't even believe. Why do they hate it when you stay calm? Because it ruins the lesson. Their whole plan depends on you reacting, crying, arguing, defending, explaining. They need you emotional so they can feel rational. The second you stay composed, the experiment flips. Now they're the one looking irrational, rattled, unstable. You became the mirror and they really don't like what they see. You want to know who really runs the room. It's the person who's least afraid of loss. Loss of image, loss of approval, loss of comfort. The one who can walk away without needing to fix everyone's perception. The one who says, believe what you want, and means it. That person is dangerous, not because they're cruel, but because they're free. Freedom terrifies controllers. They can't bribe you with praise. They can't threaten you with embarrassment. They can't guilt you with, after all I've done for you. Their weapons turn into plastic toys. They press the trigger and nothing fires. That's when their mask slips. That's when you see the frantic child underneath the adult costume, desperate to be obeyed. Someone tried to teach you a lesson and walked away offended when it didn't work. Notice the pattern. They expected appreciation afterward. I'm just trying to help you. Translation. I'm trying to mold you into something that makes me comfortable. And I'm upset you noticed. Helpers who help without your consent aren't helpers. They're sculptors angry that the stone moved. Remember this, people rarely come to you with truth. They come with preference dressed as truth. You should act like this. You should talk like that. You shouldn't say that. Underneath every should is a tiny judge with a fragile ego, stamping papers and calling it morality. The courtroom isn't real. The verdict isn't binding. It's just one person's fear in a robe. The funniest part is when they say, you'll thank me later. No, you won't. You might remember them as the moment you woke up, the moment you realized how many years you spent apologizing for existing too loudly, thinking too differently, not shelving your personality to make someone else more comfortable. You won't thank them. You'll outgrow them. Authority is a contract, not a birthright. People forget that. You agree to believe someone knows more, sees more, understands more. You lend them your trust temporarily. The minute you stop believing that, the whole structure collapses. But instead of admitting that, they accuse you of being disrespectful. Respect to them means never questioning the script. Let's talk about scripts. Humans don't just live lives, they rehearse them. The responsible older sibling, the humble employee, the obedient student, the grateful child. Every script comes with built-in lines. Sorry for bothering you. I appreciate the feedback. You're right, I overreacted. The day you stop delivering those lines on cue, the whole cast stares at you like you forgot your role. That's when they try to teach you a lesson. It's not about right or wrong. It's about getting the show back on track. You refusing to feel ashamed when they expect it. That's sabotage to them. You saying, no, I'm fine with what I did. That's treason. They don't punish your mistake. They punish your refusal to feel guilty on schedule. Here's the secret they don't want you to notice: guilt is currency. They spend it to buy control over you. You made me feel disrespected. You embarrassed me. You disappointed me. These are invoices, emotional bills, and when you pay them with endless apologies and self-blame, they get richer and richer in power. The day you stop paying, they call you selfish, arrogant, difficult, toxic. Those words don't mean what you think they do. Half the time they just mean, you stopped letting me edit you. They're not mad at who you are. They're mad that their access to your self-doubt has been revoked. They used to walk into your mind without knocking. Now the door's locked and they're offended by the keyhole. Someone tried to teach you a lesson, And for the first time, they met the upgraded version of you. Not the louder version, not the ruder version, the cleaner version. The one who doesn't explain decisions to people who are only listening for weakness. The one who can listen to a whole lecture and respond with, "No, that doesn't work for me." That line, "that doesn't work for me," is nuclear because it doesn't attack, it doesn't defend, it doesn't negotiate. It just states a boundary without asking permission. Controllers hate that. They can argue with excuses, they can twist apology, but they can't do much with calm refusal. It doesn't give them enough material to manipulate. Look closely at the people who lecture you. Do they live the way they demand you live? Do they practice the humility, patience, and self-awareness they insist you show? Watch them closely next time someone challenges. You'll see it. The very behaviors they punish and you explode out of them within seconds. That's not leadership. That's projection with nice stationery. You know what projection is, right? It's when someone throws their own mess at you and then calls you dirty. They call you disrespectful while showing you no respect. They call you overreactive while making a scene. They call you immature while emotionally slamming doors. If you repeat their words back to them, the room suddenly goes very quiet. That quiet, that's recognition. Tiny, unwanted, immediate recognition. For a split second, they see themselves. They see the hypocrisy. They slam it down fast, of course. Denial is an excellent anesthetic, but that flash of awareness is the moment the lesson boomerangs back. Suddenly, they're the uncomfortable one. They're the one being seen. They're the one under the spotlight they turned on you. Control freaks don't want conversations, they want compliance. That's why they don't answer questions. You notice that. Ask, why is that wrong? And watch how fast they pivot to tone. Don't talk to me like that. So now, it's not about the issue. It's about how you dared to speak. They move the goalposts until the only winning move is submission. You stopped playing. That's what changed the room. You let them say their piece. You didn't interrupt. You didn't beg. You didn't grovel for forgiveness over some invented crime. You watched like someone studying a live experiment. And somewhere between their first sentence and their last, something shifted. They realized the courtroom they built had no judge, no jury, and no law, just them. Here's the thing about fear, it's contagious, but so is indifference. When you're terrified of upsetting people, everyone feels it and cashes in. When you're no longer terrified, they feel that too. Suddenly their threats sound smaller, their warnings feel hollow, their dramatic pauses don't land. They can't hook you with the promise of approval or the threat of rejection. People say, "You've become cold." No, you've become accurate. You no longer mistake someone's loud feelings for divine instruction. You've started separating their upset from, "I must be wrong." That difference is lethal to manipulators. Their entire power depends on you merging those two ideas. If they feel bad, you must be guilty. Once that link is broken, they lose access. Let's talk about lessons. The lesson they wanted you to learn was simple. Stay small around me. Don't outgrow their comfort zone. Don't question their logic. Don't challenge their stories about themselves. The lesson they actually learned, that your growth doesn't ask for their permission, that you won't shrink just to fit their narrative of the world. There's a reason they call you intimidating now. Not because you bully people, not because you're cruel, but because you no longer play the soft landing for other people's ego crashes. You stopped cushioning every impact. You stopped softening every truth. You stopped wrapping your boundaries in apologies and nervous laughter. You became clear, and clarity feels violent to people who live in fog. They thought they ran the room because everyone walked on eggshells around them. Eggshells aren't respect, they're warning signs. People tiptoe around ticking bombs, not kings. You deciding to stop tiptoeing didn't make you dangerous. It just revealed how dangerous they always were to peace. You didn't change the reality. You changed the choreography. The more secure you become, the more ridiculous their performances look. The dramatic sighs, the long texts explaining how much you hurt them because you didn't obey. The public scenes meant to embarrass you into submission. You start seeing all of it as theater. Predictable, repetitive, low-budget drama. And once you see the stage, you can't pretend it's real life. You're not heartless for stepping out of that play. You're honest. You finally admitted to yourself that some people don't want understanding. They want hierarchy. They don't want dialogue, they want dominance. They're not listening to what you say, they're grading how obedient you are. Once you see that, you stop wasting monologues on people who are only waiting for you to bow. Have you noticed how quiet they get when you don't react? They try once, twice, 3 times to trigger you. It used to take one word. Now it takes a whole scene and still nothing. You don't give them the tears, the rage, the frantic explanation. Just a calm no. That's when their true personality surfaces. Not the respectable mask, the frantic, scrambling one. Behind every lesson is an expectation that you still crave their validation. If you don't, the whole machine malfunctions. It's like trying to blackmail someone who doesn't care if the secret comes out. There's nothing to hold over you. Their leverage evaporates. They're left waving empty threats like props from a show nobody's watching anymore. Let's be clear, you're not invincible. You still feel. You still get hurt. You still question yourself at 3 in the morning. But you no longer outsource your self-worth to the loudest critic in the room. That's the difference. You don't hand your spine to the first person who sounds confident. You listen, weigh, and decide for yourself whose opinion earns rent in your head. That terrifies people who built their identity on being unquestioned. They grew up believing their anger was sacred, their disappointment holy, their judgment infallible. When you treat them like one more human being instead of a moral authority, they experience it as disrespect. In reality, it's equality. But equality looks like insult to someone addicted to power. They say, "You've changed." They're right. You stopped confusing being liked with being safe. You stopped confusing being silent with being wise. You stopped confusing tolerating disrespect with being mature. The new you doesn't take every punch and then ask, "How can I improve?" The new you asks, "Why am I still standing close enough to be hit?" Someone tried to teach you a lesson and ended up getting a little education of their own. They learned that your compliance had an expiration date, that your silence was never agreement, just strategy, that your politeness wasn't submission, it was restraint. They learned that the quiet one in the corner had been studying the entire game the whole time. You're dangerous now, not because you scream, but because you can walk away mid-scene. You don't wait for the credits. You don't stay to comfort the director. You don't hang around to prove your side of the story. You exit. And nothing unsettles a control addict more than realizing you're willing to lose the relationship rather than lose yourself. Let's talk about running the room. It doesn't mean dominating everyone. It doesn't mean talking the most. It doesn't mean constant conflict. Running the room means you don't contort yourself to survive it. Your values arrive with you and leave with you. You don't lease them to whoever gets offended first. You are the constant in the chaos. The real lesson of that little incident, the lecture, the argument, the staged humiliation, wasn't about them at all. It was about you discovering how much power you secretly had available the whole time. The power to pause before reacting. The power to see the game. The power to say, "No, I don't accept those terms," and watch the dealer choke. Morality gets funny when you start looking at motives instead of words. The same person who tells you to be respectful will gleefully disrespect you in private. The one who preaches forgiveness will never forgive you for going off script. The one who insists on kindness will weaponize every kindness they've ever done for you as a chain to drag you back. You're not obligated to participate in anyone's moral theater. You can walk out of that church, that office, that living room, that group chat, mentally if not physically, and decide, their disappointment is not my judge. You're not acquitted by them. You're not damned by them. You're not waiting for a verdict from a jury that never had jurisdiction. Someone tried to teach you a lesson about staying in your place. They ended up learning where your place actually is, wherever you decide to stand, at the edge of the room, at the center, at the door on your way out. You don't need a permission slip to exist at full size. If that frightens them, they can sit down. Here's the beautiful crime you committed: you stopped collapsing. They pushed, you stayed upright. They glared, you didn't shrink. They corrected, you didn't erase yourself. To people used to getting compliance, that feels like rebellion. To you, it's just finally being aligned with yourself. No anthem, no speech, just a quiet refusal to disappear. They will tell this story differently, of course. In their version, you were rude, cold, ungrateful, disrespectful. Let them. Everyone edits the narrative to protect their ego. You don't need to argue with their script. Reality already did. They tried to run the room with volume. You ran it with presence. They wanted a puppet. They got a mirror. So now you know. Lessons aren't always for the student the teacher picks. Sometimes the class turns around. Sometimes the chalk breaks in their hand. Sometimes the only person who walks out of the room changed is the one who walked in convinced they were untouchable. That's the risk of trying to play God in a room full of people who've stopped worshiping. Next time someone walks in with that, I'm gonna set you straight energy. Don't panic. Don't rush to rehearse your apology. Sit back. Watch the show. Listen carefully. They're about to reveal everything about how fragile they are, how much they need control, how terrified they are of being ordinary. Let them perform. Let them teach. Let them talk themselves into the truth. And if you're wondering whether this makes you the bad guy, that's cute. That's the old conditioning talking. The training that says anytime you stop bleeding for others, you're dangerous. Let them call you whatever label helps them sleep. Villain, problem, disappointment, monster. Those words are just noise people make when the remote control stops working. Demanding you soften yourself is just their way of asking for the old, obedient version back. Because the real punchline is simple: the person who needs the room to bow is never the one who runs it. The one who runs the room is the one who can stand there unbent, unhurried, unhooked from their approval, and walk away smiling while their lesson burns out in the silence you left behind. And by the time they realize it, by the time they feel the air shift, class is over, lights are on, and you're already choosing your next room alone.